Hey everyone, welcome to the Gear Priority Podcast. My name is Justin and I'm your host. This podcast is all about getting slightly nerdy about the gear and technologies that help us be more comfortable and confident on our outdoor adventures. And today, this is the first episode, so welcome. I just want to kind of go over what the podcast is all about, who's going to be on the podcast, when it's going to launch. If you're listening to this on Spotify or iTunes and then you have already found it, you know it's launched. And then why a podcast? Why did I want to start a podcast when I already have a YouTube channel? I have Instagram accounts, TikTok, all that fun stuff. But I'm really excited for the podcast. It's going to be a ton of fun. And yeah, I'm really excited to share with you guys some of the sneak peeks as to who the guests are going to be, some of the topics we're going to be talking about. It's going to be really good. So there's going to be four kind of different types of episodes that are going to be on this podcast. The first one is going to be talking to industry experts about technologies and certain topics, like what is the best tent fabric. So spoiler, that's going to be the very first episode with Dan Durston. I recently listened to it. It was an awesome episode. Dan really knows his stuff, and it was just a fun episode to record with him, as well as things like what are the limitations of our value, and then is waterproof breathable for things like rain jackets and oxymoron, because sometimes it just feels like you may have a waterproof jacket, but it doesn't breathe at all. So talking to some industry experts about that. The second topic kind of episode that we're going to have on here is talking with brands about new products that they're releasing. So if there's a new sleeping pad coming onto market, then getting on with the engineers that help design that product, and then chatting with them about what the product's all about, going beyond the specs and the features to figure out who the product's for, what kind of gap in the market they're hoping to fill with it, what problem they're looking to address. Just like I said, getting beyond the spec sheet and feature sheet and really diving deep into these products as they're released. The third kind of episode that we're going to have is chatting with what I like to call movers and shakers in the industry, people who bring an interesting perspective to the discussion on the podcast. And another spoiler as to one of the guests, Steven with My Life Outdoors, him and I, we go through the best tents, and the worst tents. We do some superlatives, what the best ultralight tent is, what the most overrated tent is. That episode is also a lot of fun. Steve and I consider Steven a good friend of mine, and we had a lot of fun with that episode. Then the fourth type of episode is going to be Q&As with live streams on the channel. So if you are listening to this on Spotify or iTunes, then check out the show notes where I'll have a link to the YouTube channel where the live streams are going to be, and you can go subscribe to the channel and participate in the live streams where I'm going to answer your questions about gear. Sometimes I'll bring on a guest, sometimes it'll just be me talking and answering your questions, but we'll be able to interact. And then if you are on the live stream right now, so this first episode is being recorded live as a live stream. There's a bunch of people here who are just kind of hanging out, and if they have any questions, we're going to answer those at the end of the live stream. But those are the four different types of episodes that we're going to have. Who will be on the podcast? So I'm going to have guests on pretty much every episode, and it's going to be a lot of it's going to be engineers and designers from brands. I'm purposefully trying to avoid talking to marketers and like public relations people. I want to be talking to the people who are behind the product, and sometimes they might bring an extra level of nerdiness to it, and in some of the episodes we're probably going to get pretty nerdy, pretty in depth. But something that I'm hoping to work on and bring to the table is some of the stories behind the gear, why we're answering these questions, get some anecdotes in there, and keep the conversation interesting. And then, like I said, movers and shakers, like people like Steven Smith, and then brand founders. So the first episode every month is going to be in partnership with Garage Grown Gear, and then Lloyd, the founder of Garage Grown Gear, and I are going to be talking with some cottage brands, some of the founders of those cottage brands, why they wanted to design something like a trowel or like a new type of or a Kula cloth, kind of getting into their minds, talking about the history behind the brand, their story. I think cottage brands are just really, really interesting to talk to. They always have really cool stories. So that's really looking forward to those episodes. That's going to be the first episode of every month. And for those of you who are on the live stream, it's going to be launching April 10th, so next Monday. And I'm going to be dropping 3 episodes right at the beginning. This intro episode, and then the first episode with Dan Durston, and then the second episode. What was the second episode going to be? You're just gonna have to find out. You're gonna have to wait for Monday. I forget what it is off the top of my head. I filmed 7 episodes already, and I can tell you they're super interesting. I've listened to a bunch of them through again after the editing process. Really looking forward to it. And they're going to be launched. All the podcasts are going to be launched on pretty much every platform that you can think of. So if you like to watch podcasts on YouTube, it's going to be on the YouTube channel that's linked in the video description. If you like to listen to them on Spotify or watch them on Spotify, they'll be there. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, basically everywhere. So if you listen to podcasts on some random platform, they'll probably be there. And then if you guys have questions, if you're in the live stream and you have questions, start dropping them in there. And I'll start getting to those. But I just want to kind of go over why I wanted to start a podcast, because I do have a YouTube channel. I have Instagram, TikTok, all those fun things. But I really was excited to start a podcast because it gives me an opportunity to dive deeper into some of these topics and talk with people who are industry experts, people that like I can exchange emails, but there's something to be said for spending an hour with somebody. That's how long these podcasts are going to be, by the way, about 40 minutes to an hour. But being able to spend an hour with someone diving deep into a very specific topic is really, really exciting and interesting. I have already learned a ton. I consider myself to be and I say this on the podcast a bunch, just knowledgeable enough to be dangerous. But even then, I'm probably slightly more knowledgeable about gear just because of how much I love gear and how nerdy I get with it compared to kind of the average person. And we go deep. We answer questions that you didn't even know you needed the answer to, but once you hear the next explanation for something, you're like, wow, that's kind of crazy. How did I not know that? But that makes so much sense, and that's a lot of fun facts being dropped. And that's the reason why I wanted to start the podcast and just talk to cool people about cool topics. And at first, I'll warn you, I'm not a natural podcaster. I'm not a natural kind of speaker and monologuer like this. So there might be some stuttering and they might be a little bit slow at first, but I feel like I'm already improving after the first few, and I'm looking forward to just kind of keeping on improving and being able to just really hone the conversations with the guests a lot better. But even then, the first handful of episodes are really, really fun, really cool, really interesting. So hopefully you guys enjoy them as well. Let's jump into some questions from you guys. Pierre, can you ask manufacturers why it's so hard to export to Europe? Would it be better? Yeah, I think that's not something, that's probably more of a distribution issue for them than anything. Caitlin, thank you so much. Always appreciate the support. So Josh, I just want to kind of answer some questions about the podcast. So if you guys have questions about the podcast, and then let me know. We'll get into, I'll do a general Q&A on the Justin Outdoors YouTube channel, and then if we have specific gear questions, we can get to those on a Q&A on the podcast at some point with a live stream there. So if you guys have any questions, drop them in there. Something that I am really excited for as well is that this podcast will be a video podcast on YouTube as well as Spotify, and so you'll be able to see me, you'll be able to see my guests, and our funny faces. And over time, I'm looking to kind of improve the editing process, not necessarily improve, but add to the editing process where we're introducing some B-roll, maybe some diagrams to help explain things. So you're gonna get that hour-long audio, but then some video to kind of back it up at the same time. So it's the fact that it's on video, it makes it a lot harder to produce, but it's gonna make it, I think, really interesting and have a lot of possibilities. I'll probably chop it up a little bit too down the road as well into kind of like 5 or 10 minute segments. So if, like, for instance, Dan gives a really good explanation on how he sources materials and fabrics for the X-Mid, then I can chop that out into a 10-minute chunk of like how fabric is sourced for the X-Mid, and that'll just be a really digestible small small video that will be on the podcast channel as well. So you don't have to listen to the whole hour to maybe find that one piece of information that you're really interested in. So yeah, that's going to be the podcast. Thanks everyone for stopping by the live stream. Really look forward to everyone kind of give me some comments. If you do enjoy the podcast, once you listen to it, then make sure to rate it. Give that thumbs up or whatever it is on the podcast platforms. Drop me a comment if you're listening to this on YouTube. Really looking forward to just expanding this, diving deep into the world of outdoor gear with you guys. Should be a really good journey. Looking forward to it.